So almost 3 weeks ago, I posted this video on how I submitted an entry for the Silent Manga Audition, and I was met with a lot of kind comments from so many viewers. Now, some of the comments have mentioned that the Silent Manga Audition had yet another round, but the deadline was in 2 weeks following uploading that video. So I did what most people with a very busy life would do. I decided to make yet another manga one-shot. Let's back it up here for a bit. For context, if you ever wanted to become a manga artist and get some hand-on experience, it's best to start with a couple of shorter comics. But what if you don't have any idea of what story to draw? That is when submitting manga to contests come in. Contests can help give you a guideline on a theme to base your comic on, a specific page count, which helps if you tend to get carried away from drawing too many pages, a chance to win award, whether that is cash or a shout out, a chance for an editor to look over your work, and it helped you get the experience. Heck, even some of your favorite mangakas may have submitted a couple of short comics to contests before they were noted and were taken on by an editor that works within a major manga publisher. One of the more well-known contests, not exclusive to Japan and held internationally, is called the Silent Manga Audition, which does run contests a couple of times throughout the year. Anyone can submit something, and each round has a different theme, so it's exciting to participate whenever a round opens up. Anyone and everyone has a chance to place in the contest as long as you submit a silent manga and follow the rules. With that said, every entry is required to have 7 to 17 pages, formatted for B4 or A4 size paper. Both digital and traditional entries are okay, and no dialogue allowed. So the current round from this theme revolved around, drumroll please, letters. Now, I'm not going to bore you by reading out exactly what is said on the official Silent Manga Edition website, but what the panelists want us to focus on is how letters can evoke an emotional reaction to your character, which gives us a ton of freedom on how to write our story and the general emotional themes we want to tackle. So remember how I said I had posted my previous silent manga video around 3 weeks ago and didn't realize there was another contest announced? Yes, that meant I started my comic on April 26th, which is exactly 2 weeks before the deadline, which was on May 10th. When I initially found out that there was a current ongoing round, my knee-jerk reaction was to say, I'll wait for the next round in a couple of months. But if I did manage to come up with an idea, why not just jump into submitting a new one-shot right now? And that's exactly what happened. I cracked open my notebook and started scribbling some random ideas. The theme was letters, so that was definitely non-negotiable, but I wanted to try and focus on a different emotion. I already explored emotions of rage in my previous manga entry. Why not try something like happiness or extreme sadness? Well, if you've seen any of my posts or Instagram stories within the past couple of weeks, you do know which one I ended up going with. Nothing sparked more joy to me than drawing an emo girl with an iconic Hime haircut and half-dyed hair. So after a few illegible thumbnail drafts and a couple more pages of character scribbles in the sketchbook, I had to jump right into production because there was no time to lose. The first week was spent with coming up with the idea, the thumbnail, the sketches, collecting reference photos, transferring thumbnails onto my iPad, and cleaning them up digitally. That might not sound like a lot, but it does surprisingly takes up an incredible amount of time just coming up with the idea. The second week, oh man, I did fall a bit behind because the weekends are always busy for me and I'm still working my 9 to 5 job. So not only was I playing catch up during week 2, but I also had to 1. Transfer the sketches onto the final manuscript paper, 2. Do all of the ink, which requires a lot of focus and brain power, which is sometimes difficult to do after a long crazy day of work, 3. Add Screentones, because I decided last minute I wanted to make this entire project to take longer with the very limited time we had, 4. Cleanup, scanning, editing, and formatting the pages for uploading the final comic onto the server. Week 2 was such a blur because I think I would try and cram the sketches in between work meetings and lunch breaks earlier in the day, and then finish work at around 6 p.m., but then I still have to eat dinner, walk the dog, and do some errands. So usually I did not start inking until around 8:30 or 9:30 p.m. at night, which would mean I'm already pretty drained energy-wise. Usually I put a couple of long YouTube videos in the background to help pass the time. So according to the YouTube videos I watched during the entire duration of when I was inking, it would take me around 4 hours to ink 2 pages, which usually means that when I start at 8 or 9:30 p.m., I would end the inking session at around 1 or 2 a.m., and then still have to wake up early the next day for work. If you also notice, my previous silent manga entry was mainly done in inks and nothing else, but ever since I played around with Screentones when I was recreating manga spreads back in October, I decided I did have a little too much fun with it and wanted to implement them into this comic. So that definitely added a couple more hours to put into each page. Yes, starting the workday with less than optimal sleep is terrible on my flesh prison, but I also knew that I can finally resume a better sleep schedule once the comic was completed within less than a week. So by the time the May 10th deadline rolled around, I had knocked out as many pages as I could, but I still had a bit more to do. And I am proud to announce that I had managed to submit 8 completed manga pages an hour before the deadline. Throughout these past 2 weeks, I absolutely made sure to hit the record button on the camera and recorded most of the manga process from beginning to end. However, there is a rule on the official Silent Manga Audition page that the comic cannot be posted in its entirety if the entry places in the contest. Now, I honestly do not think my entry will place anywhere since there are so many other very talented contestants, and considering I did whip out this entire comic within 2 weeks and don't think it's my best work, I also do not want to risk uploading the whole manga prematurely and then either being disqualified or having to take down the video in the future. So, I am more than happy to show sneak peeks here and there and then we'll upload them in future videos, but if I end up not placing in the contest at all, I will show and tell everything from the story once the results are announced in a couple of months, which in this case is July 31st. Anyways, I just wanted to give you all an update on where I have been during these past 2 weeks and whether or not I ended up submitting something for this round of the Silent Manga Edition. I'm so glad I ended up putting something together and can happily say I completed yet another comic project. Special thanks to all of the commenters who encouraged me to submit something this time around, as I initially wasn't planning to make anything at all. I also wanted to extend a thank you for showing love on my previous manga video. I've always been afraid of boxing myself into creating the same thing over and over, so even though I do experiment with a lot of things, I always found myself going back to creating comics, mangas, and webtoons. There's something about turning stories into a series of illustrations that just gives me a special feeling of fulfillment. So with that said, I will be posting more comic and manga related videos in the very near future, as I have a lot of comic and art projects along the horizon that I just can't wait to show you all. This has turned out to be a very busy year for me, so while I ideally would love to upload a video every week, working on a comic project with my full undivided attention while also editing video has become a bit of a challenge, so thank you so much for bearing with me while I still figure out this YouTube thing. Hope to see you all in the next one. Keep drawing and wishing you all an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye!